Excellent. Well, thanks for your patience in getting this all started. And hopefully we're going to have some fun just hearing stories and listening to each other tell about the history of Rochelle. But before we talk about the history of Rochelle, I thought it'd be nice if you could each tell a little bit about your own history. If you could state your names again, your full names, but also tell us where you're born and the year that you were born, if you don't mind sharing that information. You okay with that? All right, you want to start, Rebecca?
I'm Rebecca Gill Hole. I was born in Winsboro, South Carolina in 1921, December 4th.
Very nice. And Nathaniel?
My name is Nathaniel Henry Hall. I was born in Rochelle. And I'm still here in Rochelle, 1912, the 3rd day of November.
Very good, very good.
Dorita Spence Bryant. I was born July the 31st, 1920 in Rochelle.
I'm Mildred Spence Ivy. I was born March the 5th, 1937 in Hawthorne, Florida.
Very nice, very nice. So let's start talking about what life was like. What it was like when you grew up. We could start with you, Rebecca. When you were born in South Carolina.
In South Carolina.
When did you move down to this area?
We came to Lakeland, Florida in 1925. We grew cotton in South Carolina, and the boll weevil had set in on the cotton. So the crops weren't doing good, and we came to Florida for a better living.
In 1925.
25.
Okay.
I was 4 years old.
Rebecca, would you mind just repeating that for us? That big truck went by just as you were talking about the boll weevils. So if you could just start again with that.
Our crop in South Carolina was cotton, and the boll weevil got into the cotton, ruined the crops, and we had to move to Florida for a better living. At that time, people were saying that money grew on trees, and we took for granted that it was the oranges that was on trees.
Rebecca, how'd you get down here?
We came to Florida in a T-model car and a T-model Ford truck.
Okay, we're gonna have to stop for a second. What is it?
And what was that?
So you came to Florida in a...
In a T-model car and a T-model truck.
You were 4 years old then.
It was a large family of us. It was 11 of us, and somehow we came to Florida.
Do you remember how long it took you to get here?
Oh no, because I was 4 years old.
It'd be several days though.
Yeah, well, I don't think it took too many days. Mm-mm. And my daddy went back to Carolina and brought 2 mules on that same T-model truck at one time.
And so you came here for the orange groves then?
Well, we came because they were saying money grow on trees down here, but we took for granted after we got here, it was the oranges that people were talking about.
Okay. So then what happened? What did you do when you moved here? How did
Well,
your family
whatever kind of farming that, whatever kind of crops, that was in season at that time. Probably beans, cabbage, whatever. That's what my daddy grew.
Okay, very good. So then, did you go to the school here when you moved? Was that school built at that time?
When I got old enough to go to school, we were in Micanopy, and that's where I went to school, in Micanopy.
All right.
Junior, senior high school.
Very good.
And then it went to junior high, on down to elementary.
Okay. Did anyone go to school here?
Yes,
And
I
Rochelle?
went to school here.
And Nathaniel? Okay.
One room, one big room.
Well, tell us about that school. Where was it?
It was right here in Rochelle. We had seats, and these folding seats. You would get up, you'd put up your seat, and book. We had a little chest there where you could put your books under, and your pencils and things. So we would put our lunch under the desk. And some of the children, hungry children, they didn't know the lunch be there, and they would go there and eat up your lunch.
So how old were you when you started school there?
I guess I was between eight. I think I started school when I was about 7 years old.
Okay. And how long did kids go to school back then? How many years?
Well,
What grade you went up to?
I went up, was 4th grade.
What'd you do after that?
Well, my dad, he had a big farm and was somewhat he was a commissary man. People would come out home and get different things, syrup, butter, eggs, all such as that.
All right. So did he run one of the stores here, or
Pardon me?
did he? There were two stores way back.
Oh no, it was one store.
One store. All right.
Oh,
One store in one room. We would have to go out in the woods. It was the winter time. It was a wooden stove. Here, the teacher would let us go in the woods and get wood because it would be so cold in the morning time. It'd be frost, ice. It was too cold for us to go out, but we'd get it wood ready for the next morning.
Very nice. And where was your house that you were born in?
Well, the house got burned down, but we still own the property. We had about 2 miles of school, and we had a branch to cross. It was a log. Sometimes I wasn't one fall in the water, but it was someone couldn't walk the log fair enough without falling in.
I have a picture that I got off the internet. It said the property of the Spence family. Was that one of your old houses then?
the Masonic Hall is still here.
That's the whole little hole.
And that says property of the
the
Spence family.
And branch of the Bradley family, Curtis and McWhorter. Must be that in, I guess we do one in the, I mean, you know, we out there. I think that's where we out there, back out there.
The picture on the bottom?
Yeah, picture on the bottom, was probably counted, cause everything dirty, y'all know about that. I guess that's must have one of the old, when you living out there, I never lived out there.
That's the old hole right there.
Yeah,
This
that's the old hall, cause everything, this is the old Masonic hall. But this is a property of the Spence family and the branch of the Bradley family. That's the, out there, I guess where mama, grandmama and them was living way out there in the, further in the woods. And further in the country.
Your grandpa and your grandma.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your grandparents,
Yeah, Nancy, your grandma.
your grandparents lived in that house there?
Yeah, probably this one.
That one?
That one,
Okay.
though, cause they thing,
Mm.
it's an old home for y'all were children.
Oh, yeah.
You and the Rita children,
Yeah, right.
living back out there.
Right, Joe Cole and Nancy Cole,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
That's what granddad and mom, that's
They was great people, they
Yeah.
was great people. Oh,
You went
me,
to the school term.
Huh?
How long you went to school,
oh,
the term?
I went to the fourth grade.
You can add on to the story if you like.
How long did you have school?
We had, the county would give us 1 month. If you wanted 2 months, you had to pay for the second month. And if you wanted 3 months, you had to pay to get 3 months, to only life. And so it did go to, they would give you 2 months. If they give you 2 months, you paid. Well, 3 months, you would get credit. 1 month.
So you would pay to go to school?
Pay the teacher.
Pay the teacher?
Pay the teacher.
Who paid the teacher? The students'
town.
families, or?
Well, I
The
tell-
parents, the parents
Uh-huh.
paid it.
Right.
So the parents had to pay the teacher, so the
Mhm.
teacher would stick around.
Yeah.
Do you remember who your teacher was? Was it the same teacher for the 4 years that you went?
What was it?
Or
What's the teacher name?
Oh, Janie Wheeler, Professor Madison.
Madison?
Janie Wheeler was my first teacher. That was my course.
Talking about cousin Jamie.
It was your cousin Janie who was the teacher?
Yeah.
Okay. And this picture that I showed you, is that the house you were born in?
I'm quite sure it is.
Okay, yeah. And did you have midwives when you were born that came to
Yeah.
the house?
Helen, no, my grandmother, Hannah Hall.
Hannah Hall.
Mhm.
Very
That was
nice.
my grandmother.
Yeah.
Midwife.
Okay. Yeah. And is this property still there? This burnt down though, you said, or is this building still there?
The house burned, but the property is still there.
The house
I
burned?
mean, they still own the property.
Okay. All right. So for a living, your family grew different crops, and your parents traded some of the crops?
Yeah. Well, we would grind cane, we would save syrup, make 1 barrel or 2 barrels of syrup, and then jugs of syrup. And our home was somewhat like a commissary. People from the Tabletop Farm would come out to buy eggs or swap grocery for eggs. And so Mom and Father was somewhat like a commissary. People would be coming out all through the week getting buttermilk, butter, eggs, greens.
And they grew vegetables, hogs, cows. They would have their own meat.
And,
Vegetables, and it's sold vegetables.
and my daddy, he had a closed-in wagon. And on a Friday evening, he would kill cows, butcher hogs, and he would go around Fireflies Grove, Park, Windsor, on a Saturday peddling the meat.
And did you help out as you grew older? What was your job?
Well, I was just probably driving a wagon, and he was sitting back in it where the vegetables and different things were.
I have some pictures of different kinds of transport, like some of the wagons that were used back then. Let's see.
He just got rid of one of their wagons from about 2-3 years ago.
Is that right?
That they had back there.
The kid was probably right out there, and I was running over there, we could use that for the other Sunday,
Yeah.
where the main drill's going.
I'm finding it. It'll take a second here to find this. photos to show you, see if this looks familiar to you. Just some of the wagons in the old days.
That's a cow, putting away.
The bull.
Yeah, this is a kind of wagon, like, it just has the body on
Oh,
it.
yeah.
When I was coming, we had the horse and the mule put it, but now the cows put it. I was making the cow day.
I think they've had oxen pull
And
it
I also put them, oh yeah.
when they was putting this road through.
Oh.
So what I'll do is I'll show you the pictures, then I'll take them back and ask you to just tell them, so we're not looking down at the pictures when we film, just ask you to
This is history.
tell some
We
stories.
could have this on other Sunday at the church. They would love to see that, the children.
Oh, I'll be happy to give you copies of these.
Okay, yeah, we like to have copies, cause I'm from the old school.
Look at this wagon with that cane.
That's Cain, oh Cain, that's Cain.
So,
Oh.
It's cane.
did you ever have that kind of wagon that had that kind of pull? I guess that's for
Yeah,
plowing.
Yeah, we had the mule.
we had a, that way,
Oh, that's Cain.
had a seat with springs in it. And the seat,
Yeah, that, we call that a sled.
Oh, okay.
That's what they called it.
Oh, yeah.
Drag on the ground.
oh, yeah.
Oh.
Well, so
I don't remember that one, but I remember that.
tell us about the kind of wagons that you used back in the old days.
Well, it was a wagon you could put 2 horses to, and you could change the shells and for 1 horse wagon. And the wagon had seats in it, with springs to it. And we also had it was a buggy, we always called it a horse and buggy, was front seat, and 3 people could sit in that front seat where the driver was, and up under the seat, you could storage your stuff. Just like if you go to town and buy stuff, you could put the stuff in it, that the top down over it.
So Nathaniel, when you say go to town, where would that be?
It was 2 miles back in the woods.
You were 2 miles back in the woods, so where would you go when you went to town?
Rochelle, right up here.
And would you go to Gainesville in the wagon?
Yes, but most of the time when I went to Gainesville, we had killed hogs, and we had to put the meat in the cold storage. And my daddy carried me and my cousin Peter Gamma along with him to put the meat in the cold storage. That was the first time I went to Gainesville.
How old were you when first time you went to Gainesville?
The first time, I guess I was around about 8 years old.
8 years old?
And it was a spring, in a horse and wagon. It was a spring side the road, dirt road. And that's where people would stop and get the water from that spring. It was overflowing all the time.
Was that Bulware Springs then, where you would stop? Do you know Bulware Springs? It's back here.
Oh, this spring was up there by close to Starvation Hill.
Close to a what?
Starvation
Salvation
Hill.
Hill. That's on the Gainesville Highway in the.
Yeah, that's over there by Falls Miller. Cemetery start right along there and go on that hill. And they call it Starvation Hill.
And where is it again?
By on 20 Falls Miller
Cemetery.
Cemetery. Start
Oh, okay.
By the Evergreen?
The Evergreen Cemetery that's in town, or the one that just has the little plastic flowers?
One that's on State Road 20.
On Street Road 20.
No, the cemetery on State Road 20,
Forest Meadows.
Forest Meadows.
Okay,
There's
right.
a spring back?
Forest Meadows East, and that's where they would stop.
Ah.
Because cemetery wasn't there during that time.
No.
Okay. Which reminds me, there was a park at one time at Bulware Springs called Oliver Park. Does that ring a bell? Did you ever hear any stories about that? They used to, it was back in the old days when there was a lake, instead of Payne's Prairie being like it is, there was Alachua Lake and there were steamboats. Did you ever hear any stories about the steamboats or about the lake or the spring there?
No, I don't, but it was a story I know of, was driving, carrying mails, delivering mails, and from Gainesville into Palatka, and out to where my grandfather and her grandfather and them lived, was out there by Palatka Pond, and that's where they would change horses at, and put new horses there to go ahead. And there was, they had a lot there where they would feed the horses to the next change and come along to carrying mail or whatnot from Gainesville to Palatka.
Okay. Okay.
They would call that, and the place where they would change it called Palatka Pond.
Wasn't in Palatka, but it was in Rochelle. But they call it Palatka Pond, way out, about 2 miles back out in further in the country.
Right.
That's where, that doctor in Gainesville like to fish, the Dr. Lasseter.
Dr. Lasseter.
Yeah, that's right, Dr. Nancy.
So Dorothea, you were born here as well.
Yes,
in
I was.
Rochelle. And where was that?
About full up there.
2 blocks, we were going up that house.
Uh-huh.
About a block and a half, right back in there. About a
So
block.
closer to the
Uh-huh.
other church, the Methodist church?
No, it's not from here. It's back at those houses.
Right around the curve.
Right around the corner.
Right around the curve on
Mhm.
34.
Yeah, I remember when she was born.
Yeah.
It was on a Wednesday, wasn't it?
Saved.
Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
The Calanthys was meeting along in that.
Mm-hmm.
That was organization, the ladies was along.
Mm-hmm.
So Mama couldn't go to the meeting because she had to have the baby.
You got it.
Say that again, please?
He said they was in a organization, and her mother couldn't go to the organization
Yeah.
because she was birthing the baby.
Yeah.
Baby, she was being born. Dorita.
And the head lady of the Calanthys was Miss, shelter, been for me.
Talking about Messini, Mama Sini.
No, she was the second, but the head lady, Miss Whitfield.
Oh.
Miss Whitfield.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Whitfield.
Mhm.
She was the head lady of the organization.
Yeah, right.
Where you were supposed to be going, but, or your mom was supposed to be going, but she was busy having you. Oh, so you were born at home with midwives as well?
Yes, I was.
Do you remember their names?
Well,
Her name?
her name was Helen Bradley.
Oh, Helen Bradley. Okay. So she was a midwife for a lot of people.
Yes,
Yeah.
she
For
was.
Claudia Hogan's
Yes.
first children as well.
Yes, she was.
Yeah. Very good.
And Dr. Floyd would work together.
Dr. Floyd.
Yeah, man. He was in Hawthorne, wasn't he?
Right. Right, sure.
So what was it like for you growing up here in Rochelle?
Well, when I was brought up, it was nice so far. My daddy, he farmed, but he was wet railroad. And he would plant beans, peanuts, sweet potatoes, and cane. They'd go to grind cane during cane season.
Yeah.
And I went to school here. And then we moved to Hawthorne. When I was going to school, they went to the 12th grade. Yeah. They built a new school. It's right down the old graded road. There's a new school they built.
In Hawthorne?
No, here,
Okay,
Rochelle.
here.
And it went to the 12th grade. They had Professor Gaze was the teacher. And he went to the 12th grade. We had 3 teachers.
So that was a different schoolhouse than the one that you went to, Nathaniel?
Yes.
Did you start off in the same one?
No.
and then-
No,
No.
we had another one around the bend there.
That's where I started.
You did.
And when the roads and water that was building up schools, and then the Sunday morning band bought the property, and they built the school.
Who was it that built the school?
When the roads wall.
Yeah,
Rose?
Rosenwald.
Rosenwald.
And
Rosenwald?
they built the school between Rochelle and Pfeiffer. That was a ten-time thing. And the Sunday morning band, they wanted it halfway. The Sunday morning band bought the property, and Rosemont built the school. It was halfway between Pfeiffer and Rochelle.
Between Pfeiffer and Rochelle. So the Sunday morning band, are you saying?
That was an organization.
What kind of organization was that?
Guess what is it?
What kind of organization can you tell you was Sunday morning? What kind of organization?
Organization with the men.
Oh, with the men?
Was it a church organization, religious, or?
Yeah, it was religious.
Were they connected with your church here?
It was
Baptist
kind of an
church.
insurance like. Somewhat like an insurance.
Yeah.
And so they got together and they built the church.
Mhm.
Oh, wonderful.
They bought the property.
Bought the property.
Bought the property.
Yeah, school.
And did just the residents themselves build the church?
No, it was
That's
a company, county, something other, the county did it. They got the property, the county built the school.
The county built it, okay. I wonder when that was. Do you have a sense of the year?
Oh,
Something
I
about-
can't think.
No, I think it must have been long in the 30s or the last part of the 20s.
Last part of the 20s or the early 30s?
Yeah, somewhere along in there.
Right. What happened to the schools?
School's still there.
The
The school building is still there,
Oh,
but folk live in it.
there's people living in it? Oh,
And it's the same way it was, the three rooms. I went there too. I finished in Hawthorne, but they let us stay just like it was on the outside. I know that they probably renovated inside for their rooms and whatever, but it's the same way.
so Mildred, you went to that school as well?
I went to that school as well. I went there from first to 8th grade, no, 7th grade. Her husband was the principal during that time. His name was Mr. Gaddy.
But it was junior high at that time.
Yeah, when I
We
went.
had cut it
When
down.
I, you cut it down, yeah, cause I went Hawthorne, Shell in 8th grade. I finished there in 7th grade, and then when I went. But the school is still there, and just like it was when we was going, when it was built when they were children. And so we can take it down there, just before you go to see the building. I went, it was a nice school, and then my first teacher was Miss Parker. And her daughter's still living, isn't she?
I think so. Mrs. Cosby.
Yeah, Cosby, because her husband was a dentist.
Uh-huh.
He was a dentist, wasn't Dennis Cosby, the man.
Yes.
I think she's still living. I mean, the daughter, I didn't know her, but Miss Parker was my teacher. We had in Rochelle, it was nice because we had really fine teachers, good teachers. We call them good teachers. We really had to learn here during that time they didn't play.
And if you get promoted, you sure have earned it.
You earned it. Yeah, you earned it. And it was just very nice, and they had, well, during that time they had outdoor toilets when I was going to school.
And also pump.
Yeah, I had a pump. Yeah, I had a pump. And we used to play ball. I remember when we used to
So
throw
that
out.
when you went to Hawthorne, they had outdoor then?
Yeah.
Because I know they had them when I was going to Hawthorne.
We used to play ball, throw the ball across the school. We used to throw in children on one side, on the other side, and then you catch the ball and come back on the other side. And then, we would have plays. During that time, there was a lot of plays. You had to learn speeches, which I like that. We do so much of that now in school. Now we had to learn speeches, and we had to learn everything. We had to learn the house by the side of, have you all ever heard the house by the side of the road? That's a speech. We had to learn that.
Do you still know it?
I know part of it, it's so long, but we had to learn it. I know it. There was 100 souls that live within a place of their self-content. Now, before you come, I could say it, but now I don't got it. But it's so long. But another poem we had to learn about, I remember that one. It was a long one too. There was an old woman. There was an old woman, ragged and gay. She was bent with the chill
Miss Adam.
on the winter's day. The street was wet with the recent snow, and the woman's feet were aging slow. She stood at the crossing, and she waited long and cared for amid the storm of human beings who passed her by, not even a glance of their anxious eye. Then the freedom of school let out. There came the children like a flock of sheep, passing the snow pile high and deep. Not off her hip and hang to her. She was so meek, she was so tempered, she was afraid to stir. Then stepped one of the proudest group, the proudest lad of all that group. He paused beside her and he whispered low, "I'll help you across if you wish to go." As he placed his strong arm on her aged hand, as he guided her trembling feet along. And the prayer she said that night was, God be kind to that noble boy who's somebody's son, pride and joy. That was from the old school. I must was about how old? About 10 or 11 or something.
Yeah.
But that's most of that poem, but that's all I can remember. But yeah, we had a good time there. Teachers were real good. We would have plays. We had a long stage where you get on, and all the parents would come. During that time, everybody was walking. And during that time, didn't nobody bother you. You can walk from here, because we used to walk to the store, our little store. We would always walk to the store up there. And they would have plays that night, and the school would be full. And whether they had children or not, they always would participate. Anyway, everybody didn't have children. We was everybody's children during that time. And you graduated from Rochelle School, and you went to Hawthorne. During that time, it was called Shell. It was high school then. Shell High School was where I graduated from. And then after I graduated in '55, it was still a high school for '56. And after '56, they closed it down from being a high school to junior high. Then they went to Lincoln. And after that, they went to Hawthorne. They became integrated. And then the other children went to Hawthorne High School. That's where my children finished at Hawthorne High School. And Stanley went, your boy along with my boy, he went to Eastside High School during that time. But yeah, we have a stove. Now, I don't remember the stove and anything back here, but I've shown it to one of the person I rode with you. Yeah, and on the corner back there, that old stove,
Yeah.
part of the old stove still there, but that was during your time. But a part of that stove is, the old brick part is still there,
Yeah. Old pump.
old pump. And the stove that I remember was still there.
Yeah.
And we had 2 stoves in Rochelle when I was a girl. We used to go to Miss Bessie King and Miss came to, I think she said about the Timmons. Miss Claudia Hogan's brother ran the other stove. But we always
Well, we had Bo up here.
yeah, now tell them about that. Y'all know about that. Tell them about Rochelle used to be a city.
Oh, Rochelle used to be Rochelle.
Yeah.
They had dry goods stoves, they had grocery stores, they had cafe. That used to be a turntable with a railroad. The train would come from Panatka, turn round and wait on 39 and 40 to get the pasture to carry back to Putnam County. And it would run in the morning time and the evening time, meeting 39 and 40 from Jacksonville into St. Petersburg. And this was the branch station.
Yeah, that's where everybody had to come to Rochelle and catch the train. 39 and 40 was passenger train.
Yeah, right,
One going north and one going south.
right.
I had 2 night trains,
2 night trains also,
37 and
Just like it was in the daytime.
37 and 38
at night.
at night. I remember the water tank. I wish they had pictures of that. You ever seen that in the library?
And then the water tank and the pump house.
Pump house, big old water tank. And we
Yeah,
had a depot.
yeah, that's right.
Where was the depot?
You can
The depot, we'll show y'all that. It's not, as you,
Is that Dan Long's house? Was that where the depot?
no, it was, no, down, it's along, no. It's not, it's past Long's house. No, I'm talking about Famous Timber, that's a Long house, Mr. Long house. No, that wasn't that wasn't the depot. No.
It was a little further down.
Yeah, before you get to making up the road.
Yeah, but it used to be right there across from Hogan. That was, they had a cafe there that people could get on 39, you get 15 minutes, 39 and 40 was back in to the restaurant. They'd give you 15 minutes to get what you want to eat, drink or whatnot.
I think Lilybell worked at that, she worked at that restaurant, didn't she?
Yeah, Lilybell, Susan May,
Susan May White.
Lady Jane Rosalie, they worked there.
Yeah. And Susan May White, I don't know if you ever seen that book, now she, Rochelle, real, very historical, she wrote 2 books. You all know Miss Susan May White? Oh, she's well known, she was a retired teacher. She was the first black who, integrated the school in, in her position. She would go all over the county. She's widely known, and she's in her 90s, but she can speak. She still is very active. Better than me.
And and then the Alice Tillman, it was a grocery store on the bottom and a hotel on top. People could stay over there, train people waiting on the train, different trains that come in. Susan May Rosalie, Lady Jane, they worked for Alice Tillman. Alice Tillman running that cafe.
And Alice Tillman, that's where Long lived. He lives in a house that used to be hers. He's renovated it, which is nice. And it's also on our zucchini festival.
That's Raleigh, ain't it?
The whole thing. Yeah. But anyway, that same house we're talking about, where you said the Long house, it was on our t-shirts this year. Yeah, we had that on our Mental Volunteer Fire Department t-shirts. That house was on there for this year.
And I was born right back behind there. Where that house, where the t-shirt was on, the house was on the t-shirt.
And the old house is still there.
Yeah.
We haven't tore it down yet, but we don't.
And her grandmother run it, she had a shop there. For people to go there and get soda water, ice cream, candies and things.
I'm out there the shop.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you being able to get on the train and go somewhere?
Oh yeah, Palatka train, it would come from Palatka. And the children long in those days and things, they know Mr. Kenneville and Mr. Brown, Egg, Maud Hubbard, Nan Brown, Mr. Kenneville. And the train was gonna turn around, Benny Passion, and it was going up there and turn around. And the children would be there to get on that train and ride around that turning block.
So did you do that, Nathaniel?
No, I didn't do it. I was young, but I remember that.
What did you do?
But I was with my older brothers and sisters, and the older one would let you go there and ride around. The next time, he would keep me, and let the other one go there and ride around. I wasn't old enough.
Oh, you went older now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the railroad, what he's talking about, is still there. Well, I still say railroad, but it's the bike path coming from Gainesville and the Hawthorne, that's what he's talking about. It's right there and close in front of my house. That's the bike path. And that during that time, it was the railroad from Palatka into Rochelle.
Yeah, but we go, my daddy would get passes for us to ride the train. Go to Lakeland.
And they had a water tank that the train would stop there and get water.
So Dorothea, tell us about your riding on the train. What was that like for you?
Oh, I loved it, to ride the train. We would go, Mama would go, get ready, and we'd go to Lakeland, Braveland, and Sarasota.
Go there to see Gertrude.
And Hubbard.
Yeah.
Then we go on the Robonia, that's where Aunt Sally stayed.
Yes, cousin Sally.
And then we go on to Sarasota down there to cut. Oh, I can't think of her name.
Sadie.
No.
Sadie, you?
She couldn't. Sadie stayed in Brazen.
Brady, that's right. Yeah.
And we go down there and see Canilla's daughter.
So your father worked for the railroad?
Yeah.
So you got some free passes and you could go all the way to Sarasota?
We could go in the part up north, in the part where we wanted to go. Whether the passes would take us.
Oh, very nice.
I remember when we, Louis and me went with Mama. That's her mama. I call her mama. I call her by her name Dorita. But I remember we went to Bradenton, see Sadie.
Cousin Sadie.
Yeah, Louise and me and Mama on the train.
You remember Eddie?
Eddie me, the one that Mama made?
Come
Oh yeah, I remember her. Yeah, I remember her. Yeah. Now his daddy and her mama was like I thought they were brothers and sisters, but they was cousins. But they were so close. And we come from the school and he had that big old horse. And you can see that horse and mule. Horse would be parked up there, up at the house. You get to see it.
You knew who he was.
Yeah, I know who it was. It was like Edward. But we thought they were brothers and sisters. They were so close. But they was our cousins. But that's where we are here. Because they're cousins, but they're like brothers and sisters. And she's married to our family. She's married to the family. She's one of us too. And she is such a sweet lady. Oh my Lord. She's a blessing to us. A blessing to us.
I'm a witness.
Oh, she is.
Well, let's talk some about the churches. So, for a long time, there's been two churches in Rochelle. There's the Methodist church, the one that's been empty, that we're hoping to restore, and then there's the Baptist church here, of course, right almost across the street. And there's one down here too.
But they think you had more than one church when y'all was coming, more than two churches.
Yes,
More than two.
Tell about that.
yes, it was, now, Mr. Ed Miles and his family, they was Baptists, and they went to the Baptist church. But the Tillmans and the Zetrides and things, they was the Methodists. And Ed Miles and his family, going upside the railroad before you get to where Chloe Tillman home was. The Baptist church was up there. And so there was two churches of the Baptists and two churches of the black people. Old Chapel and Third Bethel. I just remember the name of the Baptist Church of the White.
But the one you're renovating, that's the Methodist one they're talking about now, that's the Methodist church.
You had 3 black churches.
And then you have a sanctified church, a holiness church, over where Miss Ida. Oh, that was AME. Oh,
Then the sanctified church was the Bible.
oh.
Then we go down there to church and they come up here to church. Most of them people bounces up here.
They walk 2 miles at night to church.
And Dorothea, you were at Claudie Hogan's marriage, weren't you?
I was a little girl.
Little
when I was
girl.
there.
Right.
So I believe that was 1928,
It was 29.
29. So tell us about that.
I was 9 years old. I can remember it a little bit, not too much.
Tell that part.
So we was all standing there waiting till they come. And then all I can remember was when they went into church and come out.
Well, didn't you say both of them married at the same time? Miss
Yeah,
Claude?
her and her sister married at the same
Ruth?
time. Ruth. See, we was just looking for Miss Ruth to marry and come to find out Miss Claude
It was a twin,
yeah, they married.
Hogan and Perry.
Oh, so there's been one marriage.
Ruth married Perryman, and Chloe married Hogan.
Jasper.
And what I'm telling you, he was a poor boy. The cousin thing Lasseter Tillman, to Chloe about, Bill, I always seen when girls marry, they marry often. But it seemed like to you, when your daughter married, she married on, but her husband, he would come by our house and get sweet potatoes, greens, meat to cook. And the next evening he would go by in Jeffers and Uncle Peter's, sweet potatoes or something to cook.
That was Mr. Jackson, Mr. Claude's husband.
Yeah, Chloe husband.
Well, my Ruth ain't living, is she?
Yeah, she was a pyramid. Oh,
So do you remember the church being built, that the Methodist church being built that Claudia was?
No, when I know it was there. So my mother had a house on the other side of the church, kind of back around over that way. She waited for a lady, Miss Sally Perry. And Miss Sally Perry gave her a big house up there on the other side, back off from the church. You went back there, you could see the house from the church.
So Sally Perry was the daughter of the governor.
Governor Perry. And my mama waited for her.
I did a lot of traveling with her, didn't she?
Yeah, she traveled with different places.
What were they traveling for? Is that related to being a governor's daughter, or?
I guess so. All I know that they'd be gone. She'd go different places. And my mama go be with her.
Did she tell you any stories about where they went or what they did?
I know she said one time they went to Hot Spring. Arkansas.
And the governor is buried in Rochelle. You know that, don't you? Governor Perry. Yeah, he's buried here in the cemetery.
That's right. That was Sally Perry who donated the land for the Rochelle school. Do we need to stop for a minute?
Nathan.
She got, but she had the name on where
Yeah, there's the name
The
up
name-
there. There's
name-
Alachua,
Uh-huh,
and it's Archer there,
okay.
and Hawthorne. That look familiar?
Well, this was Haiti up there.
Okay.
Hawthorne look familiar, come brother? Hawthorne?
It should.
This is the one. Does that look
Over
familiar to
years.
you?
Yes.
I don't know about this one. Let's look at this, the Orange Grove.
There's Gainesville with the train.
Oh, yes, it used to come through the heart of town. And you know what? I remember the university boys, the train would come through there, and on Halloween, was it Halloween? They would get in the middle of the track and would let
Stop the train.
You know, a whole lot of people don't know that the train track was right down Main Street.
Main Street.
In Gainesville.
It hadn't been long ago when they moved that.
No, it moved it to 6th Street,
Mm.
and then they cut it out.
Does that one look familiar to you at all, Nathaniel? That one, or?
You got to help
It's
me.
Orange Grove.
You got to help me. My eyesight ain't good.
We don't know where that one is. It's in Florida somewhere.
That Orange Grove, that's in Cross Creek.
My daddy, he was a big on road on the place where I was born there.
Oh, it was?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And Orange Grove, in the place where you were born.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 'cause you know, only used to grow and had right up there by the house, and had a big orange grove.
Sure did.
Basically, back
All back out there was orange. And all on and on the side.
And we used to gather these things, what the Indians had. What was the name? We would gather those things.
But the Indians
there.
had,
It was some kind of little round something that the Indian was used.
And you ate it? Did you eat it?
No, we didn't eat
Oh,
it.
we
It was,
didn't eat it.
it was just together to
Oh.
remember the Indian.
Oh, yeah. There's an Indian grave right up there. They used to
That
keep it
one got
clean.
by me.
But they don't. Did you know the Indian grave was here in Rochelle? It's right past the store.
Oh,
Going towards
oh,
Wilson.
yeah, yeah.
You got
Yeah, we
so
used,
many pictures
yeah,
on
I
the floor.
remember we used to, the
Yeah.
county had us going
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
cleaning it up.
yeah.
Mhm.
And they said, in Nancy, the Indian was coming, and I don't know what Kennedy's, Nancy, what's her name?
And then,
And Nanny Dickerson. Some of them had to push the baby down and put a cover over the hole
mhm.
till the Indians passed through.
So
But-
Nathaniel, you were
was-
saying,
Was that in your lifetime, Nathaniel? Did that happen to you, that there were Indians here?
No, it
No.
didn't, but we would go up there and to keep it clean.
and you were told the story?
Yes,
Right past the store.
yeah,
Yeah.
and on the left,
Yeah, Indian grave.
next to the visitor's home.
They used to keep it clean.
Yeah, sure did.
I said I want to go to the library and see it.
And then they put a monument
There
there.
was a monument there. I think the women put it there twice and somebody
Yeah.
I
took
took
it
it
out.
down.
Yeah, they put it there as women.
Mm.
What the club name? Women in Gainesville. But anyway, they put it there twice and somebody took it down.
That Melanie Barr, she did it?
Part of the
Melanie Barr?
might have done it.
So Nathaniel, you said something earlier with the orange groves, the Indians, you used some kind of, what was that you were describing, that the Indians, a round thing,
Oh,
you were saying?
it was something that we would go and look for what the Indians find. We would save them. It was a round thing and a sharp end to it.
Arrowhead.
Arrowhead?
Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Oh, arrowhead. Oh.
Did you find arrowheads here?
Yeah,
We used to find a lot of them down in Micanopy.
we used to find them.
Didn't the boys find her?
And didn't have sense enough to try to keep them.
That's right.
So do you know about the name Fort Crane?
Oh, great.
If you go right up 234 towards Micanopy, how
Yeah,
it's a hill,
yeah.
and at the top of that, in the old days, way back 1840, 1850, they built a fort and called it Fort Crane because the Seminole Indians were warring with the settlers here. And so they built a fort to protect the settlers.
I helped put that road through. It was a graded road, it was a sandy road, but that road we put through, I helped, drove a straight train to put that road through. And we got on that hill up there, we run into a Indian graveyard. And they would take the bones and skeletons and things out to the university. They held us up till they thought they had found all the skeletons and things on top of that hill going to Micanopy.
Look before you get there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We had a tour. We had a tour from Gainesville into Rochelle. I mean, into Windsor. And Mr. I can't think of his name. And anyway, he was telling about that and showing us where it is.
You know they think it was visible.
Can I tell you on that tour when we went from Gainesville, from the library?
In Magnolia.
Yeah, we went from there to Rochelle. You didn't go? We went from Gainesville into Windsor. And then, cause I didn't know anything about that, but it still there, showed us where the
Yes.
Indians was.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
it was a big bush.
It was a big bus load of us. You all wasn't on the bus, y'all didn't go on that? They didn't know
Yeah,
about that.
oh, you don't, but I do.
Oh, yeah.
And so was that about in the 50s that you built that road? Is that?
No.
Oh, no, it was very bad.
Oh, I came over here in 38. It was dirt road.
Mm.
It had to have been paved around 39 or 40.
And that cemetery the road went on the back long then. But in the later years, they built that road right in front. That's the front. In Governor,
Here.
Is that the road that came behind the church up there,
yeah,
coming from Mickenoke?
Went by Mr. Bruce's at our house.
right.
Went by Mr. Bruce's at our house.
And they had a canal across.
Yeah, nail across.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm. I remember that road.
So do you know, going back to the church now, the Methodist church that we're trying to restore now, do you remember stories about when the bell would ring, other than for church to begin? That they used that bell?
And someone died.
Tone the bell.
Oh, yeah.
Told.
They don't do it now.
No.
Yeah, that the bell tower fell in and the bell fell off. It's still there.
The bell's still there?
It will be restored.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, the bell's still there. Remember any stories about that bell going off? Anything that happened?
Well,
Long
when anybody died, and we know they was sick, and that bell would tone them, it'd be in the midnight or early in the morning or the next. He must be dead or she must be dead. That bell would tone. The officer would tone the bell. Some of that members of the church had died.
It would ring differently than it did
Yeah,
for service.
right.
They would hold,
The tone.
yeah, hold it to keep it from doing this. Yeah,
When somebody died. They would
yeah,
go
when
to
someone
the-
died,
Oh,
that's what they called tolling the bell.
oh.
Did they also ring it when a child was born, or if there was a fire or any other kind of emergency that you can remember?
No, I don't know. Honest,
Just when
I
people
wouldn't know.
died.
Just when someone.
And we have church Sunday school.
When they were carrying the body in the church, they would tone it.
Well, apparently that church has been empty for 60 years, a long time. You have any idea of why it closed down?
Well, old man Abe Porter at church, it was his church. He was the owner's officer of that church, I know. And when they didn't come for Sunday school, he would come on down to Hall Chapel, old man Porter, the Sunday school. That church was built just before. It was in the back of the Marbles property, between there and where Lincoln go down to his house. That's where the Methodist church was, Porter's church. Porters and the Feasters would attend that church.
Are you saying Polish?
Porters.
Porters, that was a well-to-do citizen.
That was his name, Porters.
Polish.
Porters built the church.
And they got the property of the Porter's property.
into the zit route.
So they built that church up there, where is it now?
No, this church is gone.
No, we're trying to find out about the church that's up there. Do you know anything about when,
No, I don't know when he was built.
did you know any members of that church?
Feaster, Porter.
And Marsha Turner. She belonged to Miss Marsha.
Yeah, Bud Turner,
Miss Bud,
Larry Tunney. Bud, he was the one who had that half a foot.
I remember that was a girl. Miss Marsha was his, I thought it was his wife, but it was his sister.
Yes, sister.
I always thought it was his when I was a girl.
No, but Marsha, didn't she run a little store?
No, she used to be the mail. We used to get mail. The mail used to go up there. It was a little shop.
Old shop.
Well, we had heard that Claudia Hogan's father had his funeral there about 60 years ago, and that was the last
Mule
event.
Hill.
That's right.
What was the name?
Mule Hill. They call it, not Real Hill, they call it Bill.
Bill. It wasn't Miss Marshall's funeral there?
Yeah, you got.
I remember Miss Marshall, I was a girl, but,
Yeah, Marcia, she was since Tillman.
since Mr. Bill was, 'cause I don't remember him, but I remember Miss Marshall.
Well, we got a picture there of somebody. I don't know whether, I think it's Miss Sally.
We got a picture of Miss Sally Perry. Me, Mama got a picture of Miss Sally Perry in the casket, which was on all that property.
Yes, yes,
Now, the question was, did you know why the church closed?
yes. Did I
Uh,
know why it was closed? I think the members got scared.
membership went down.
So there were a couple big events that happened that changed Rochelle, going all the way back to the late 1800s, about 1895, I believe, when they had the big freeze and the orange industry
Yes,
went south. And a lot of people left then, didn't they?
right.
Nance, I'm gonna have to stop you.
They had a,
Stole me a though.
yeah, they had a big sawmill here, up there.
Barfield showing.
A big sawmill, and over in that way, them trailers had was a bunch of houses,
And,
pharmacy.
and is that right, sold the property, they come right by your Kudzu property, right by in the front of the house, all in the lawn. Wallace Braintree, he was one of them. Wallace Braintree, that Nazarene,
Yeah.
So was it Kelly's Mill? Is that the name of the lumber mill?
It was
So-
Barfield.
Barfield, he
Barfield?
was from Georgia.
And were you aware of any turpentine farming, the stills, or back in the old days in this area, they used to do the turpentine farming from the trees?
Oh, yes, yes. And I remember, the 10-time people, they would chip boxes, whole tree. I remember Susan May and Lady Jane, them, when they first came here, they hold tree boxes. Benjamin and Buddy, they was too young. But Susan May, Rosalie, Lady Jane, they hold 10-time tree.
Where was the turpentine?
Cypress.
Pfeiffer.
And they would, had what didn't have put them on. They lived right back of the school house.
I think that's in her book, one of her books that she wrote,
Oh, sure.
and she tell about, her life as a child and
Yes,
what a hard time to have, but her book name is Determined in Spite of.
yes, yes, yes,
So there was a lot going on in the area, and there was the big freeze in about 1894, 95. Citrus industry went down, went south. And then later, the railroad industry went down too. So the rumor was, I think it was one of the Zetwires who said that they thought there were as many as 4,000 people at one time in the Rochelle area back in the 1880s before the freeze. And then it went down to about maybe 175 residents. And now it is what it is today.
It's building up now, isn't it?
yeah.
They all out through these woods now.
I remember the factories and things used to be in Rochelle. It was a moss factory. It was a cotton factory. And what other kind of factory? But anyway, I do remember those. It was, but we go in the field, we cut, Coochie used to work. It used to be a quarters lived in there. And oh boy, it was a family that he had two good looking girls.
But the Moss, you just get the Moss, they used to make mattresses, put stuff to mattress with Moss mattress, long time ago.
So the moss factory used Spanish moss to make mattresses?
Spanish
I
moss?
guess so.
Yeah, the moss was out there, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's that moss mattress was good to sleep on during that time, wasn't it?
Oh, yes. I remember we used to have to change the bed and tease the moss up, soften it, put it back in the mattress. And one lady, beside her strong, she sun her mattress and teased the moss, making it soft. And when she put it back in the mattress, she put a snake in there. And she would be sleeping there at night and something would be cold and she'd be something crawling. So she found out about it must have been a snake. And she taken the mattress out and found the snake.
I don't think they use that now on moss mattresses.
No.
Have you ever heard any old stories about the Civil War or anything? That there's a lot of fighting that went on right in this area. Anybody hear about old stories? Maybe were any of your ancestors involved in all in the war, or did they go back that far that you know of? Like your great grandparents maybe would have been around at that time.
Well, I hate to come out with it, but they used to be so down on the black man. I remember it was a homer man, black man. I remember this. He went to Bill Tillman, he stayed out in the country. And the black man was hungry. And he went there to ask for something to eat. And Willie Tillman them said he was going crazy. And they tied him, his arms, and hooked him to the wagon. Carried him from his house by Vipers. Brought him up here in front of Bill Tillman's store. And he was sitting down under the grocery store talking. And some of them said, that nigga gonna run, and shot him down. And my daddy, they told my daddy, Papa said he told him, Edward, go there and turn him over and let him die. Papa said he told him, I didn't kill him, and I'm not gonna put my hand on him. You go there and turn him over.
So there was some good things in Rochelle and bad things also.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very sorry to hear that story. And I'm sure there's a lot of stories like that. In fact, I had a picture. This goes back to the 50s, not even that long ago really. It was just a pastor at a church, Baptist church in Tallahassee. And he's showing the cross that was on his lawn that was burned by the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh,
It was lots of that.
oh,
back
yeah.
then.
Oh, yes.
Well, once somebody, I heard that, because I went back to that time, once somebody taking off the porch by the house right now, where the trail is right over there.
Yeah.
I heard y'all story about that. I was taking off and taking way out in the woods. A lady.
What was that story, Mildred?
Something about, wasn't somebody taking off that porch over to where Mama had used to stay? There was a family there. I think it was a lady and her children was taken out way at the other side of St. Paul Cemetery. And
Taking her and her sister.
her sister. Did it kill him?
I didn't get it.
Talking about Miss Doris and her sister.
Oh, yes,
And
that's right.
Mr. Stroll and his two sons.
You got it, child. You got it. Doris was younger than the oldest sister.
So you're not talking about yourself, another Doretha?
Another Doris.
Yeah. And her and her younger sister
Yeah.
were taken away?
They was taken away and just killed them on the other side of winds and turned them loose and they had to walk back. It was night.
Mm-hmm.
And they was doing that cause their boss man did that cause them was his men was there. Mr. Straw and M and the other boy.
And you had some relatives to go to World War I. Didn't some of your cousins go to World War I?
I had two uncles in World War One.
I'm talking about
And
that.
Helen's son,
Oh, Lee Bradley.
is that the one that got the Purple Heart from?
Yeah, he got killed in the army and a good many years after he had died, his daddy wanted him to bring the body home, and they shot the body and shot all soldiers along with her so they wouldn't open the body. And they placed the body in 30 Bethel, and his dad and them. And the soldiers had to watch that body, stay up overnight watching that body, keeping the body from looking in it over.
Probably was a rock in it.
Oh, instead of the body.
Uh-huh.
Collis also went to he was in World War One, wasn't he?
Then Uncle Collins and Uncle Cool.
And they said that's why, he just said that's why Albert God had that limping leg. That body was in the Baptist church. And he seen the man coming to get him. And he jumped up out the bed. And that's where he messed up his broken leg.
Broke his leg.
So there's stories that even go all the way back to the Seminole Indian Wars, where, did you know that they probably know this, that some history that the blacks and the Indians fought together?
Together.
Well, they said that in the fight all out in here, all back up in there, but I don't know nothing about it.
And you see on that plaque that they had, we was talking about, where the Indian grave, it was on that plaque about the black and the Indians. And, cause I think, Martha Ann, one of the Tillmans, she was in school, I think that class came down there and they're taking pictures of it, of the class sitting down at the grave, at the graveyard. And on that plaque was about the Indians and blacks fought together.
No, they said they fight all out in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And Nancy, Don Dickinson mama, she could tell us a lot about that.
But she didn't live too far from it. Stay crossing.
Yeah.
But I saw in the paper this where I forgot the man's name, but he's still living. For 60 years, they didn't give him his will. Did you read it? It was in the Guardian several weeks ago. And because I was gonna take it to the church and put it on the wall like I usually do. And he's still living, and he works at Public. And I can't take his name. He works at one of the Public supermarkets. I think out, not the one that's close. Where he fought in that war too. And they didn't give him his his honors like it was due. So after 60 years, he has received it. That was in the paper several weeks ago.
Well, I have just a couple more questions, because I know we've been here a long time, you all been very patient. And one of them was just about the Depression, what your experience was living through the Depression. Maybe a story about what that was like for you and your family. And the other thing being the best advice you ever got. The advice that you live your life by, and you could each take turns doing that. But starting with the Depression, anybody have a story about that, what it was like?
I sure did. Back at that time, as I said, my daddy was a farmer. We always had plenty of food, but there was no money. If they had $1, they had good money. There was no money back at that time. We did a lot of farming, as I said, plenty of grocery, but that's all. And my mother did the sewing. She made the boys and the girls' clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe material was 5 or 10 cents a yard, and she would go to the store,
Yeah.
get in the make. And I think a lot of it was made out of flour sacks. We should buy flour
Mm-hmm.
and make some of our clothes, especially underwear.
And these bean sacks, when you get bean sacks, it would make different things out of them. The little bit of
Yeah, well, I remember making
yeah.
scarves to go on the dress and things out of those. And we take the end of it and make a little frill, you know, pull the threads out, make a little frill.
Yeah.
Frill.
Do any of y'all remember the lady was making the cocoa sacks dresses?
Oh, that was in the later years there.
Yeah.
Were there any thatched houses back then? You know, made out of the palms for the roofs instead of logs or wood?
I can't remember. I can't remember.
I can't remember none of them, might have been.
What is it about that church? The church was made, what was it,
Brush hog.
Brush hog. The first church, the third Bethel down there in front of my house, I was before my time. But the first church was a brush hog, maybe what you talking about? The thresh.
But what is the bush
A
on?
brush hog, that's what it said. I don't know, I guess I don't know. The brush hog must be from some kind of palms, I imagine.
What I figured that it must, I just think it just have to be like in the bushes. Must be have church like that.
But I was thinking about maybe they had a cover
Yeah, cover
over it with the palmettos.
Yeah, I remember you said the pelmeters sheds.
Yeah, that's probably what
That's what I was thinking when they said the brush hog.
Because when we read it, it was brush hog, and then from the brush hog to the church, I do remember that one, before they built the other one. So that must have was the brush, what she was saying, during that time.
Dorothea, what are your memories of the Depression?
Well, my memory of the depression was, when we got along good for as I know. We had plenty to eat, clothes to wear, and we would get candy every now and then. And we picked beans. I never picked no cotton, but we picked cotton. My daddy had planted some cotton. And I'd go over to the field with Uncle Josh and the Adeline. They'd be picking cotton. I'd be over there just sitting under the tree with them. And I enjoyed my childhood coming up.
I don't remember, I wasn't in the depression, I mean, I don't remember the time like that, no.
I remember you.
I don't remember that, but,
I remember your brother Bubba was married to Maud, and Russell was born. He was a child, was born, and Maud had to go pick cotton, and cousin Nancy, cousin Bubba and them, and so I would have to keep Russell. He would bring a blanket for him to lie on, and I would stay under the tree with him while they pick cotton.
Oh.
That was out there to the old Coleman place.
I wasn't in a depression.
Loud enough, so-
I wasn't in a depression, but I can remember my grandmother. We always had plenty of food, like I said, we always had plenty of food. And I never considered myself being poor. Maybe I was, but we didn't know it. Poor and didn't know we were poor. Because we always had plenty of food, because my grandmother would do a lot of canning. During the time, during the time when the beans was, she always had, during the time they was canning in jars. And I can remember in the little shop, always was a lot of food. And it always was a lot of food with other people. Other people would always come by. Mama, my grandmother, always had food to share with others.
Yeah.
And I remember every year we call them, during the time we call them tramps. They would always come by. The most of them would be men. It wouldn't be the women. But my grandmother always had something to give them. And they never did try to attack us. She would feed them, and then she would give them enough food to carry with them
Mm.
down the road.
Yeah.
That was yearly.
Mm.
Probably wasn't the same people, but she always had something to give.
Right.
And my grandmother said that, her grandmother said that she wanted her blessings to fall on Joe's daughter, which was her mother, Susie. I said, but Mama, pray that your blessings fall on me. And truly, you know, just an old saying, but I do believe that Mama's blessing has really fell on me. Because I really get along well, and people are always good to me, always has been. White and black is no color line. And it's good to be known that people, you know, that people love you,
Yeah.
and to be
Yeah.
loved and have a right attitude
Right.
towards everybody.
Right.
And do you feel like Rochelle has come to that place, come from a place of once being very segregated and having problems between blacks and white, but now, how does it feel?
I really do believe that we have come together. I really do. I work on the polls.
But you know, before that was, look like all of us out here got along just like
Good anyway.
Always was good.
Together.
And they always had work for you to do.
oh, we stayed right on up there, right,
Oh, yeah.
raised up round.
Yeah. Miss Timmer was in front of us, and Miss Miles was on the other side of us, and we always been together. It's never really, truly, hardly ever been segregated. We was all together. There might have some differences, which would be in anywhere, but we always was together. And we rarely have grown now, and just work together.
So the final question, just best advice you ever got. Anybody want to share that?
I remember my mama tell us that my daddy, he had to walk 7 miles to work. And the only time he would see his children in the daytime would be on a Sunday. He said he would leave around 11, 12 o'clock to walk 7 miles. And he would take a spanner light, candlelight, but on a spanner, and go in the room and look at his children. He didn't see his children on a Sunday. I mean, without, they would be asleep. 7 miles.
Make a living.
Mm-hmm.
See, look where he brought me from.
That's right.
That's one of our songs in church. Look where he brought me from.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Look where we bought it from.
Thank God.
When you were growing up, did you get some advice that you remember from your father? Who taught you how to live?
Well, I guess so, daily. It was a daily thing. But I remember a little saying that my oldest sister taught me when I was about 6 years old. Be careful what you say or do, because someday it might be a witness against you. And I've tried to live by that.
You sure have.
And my dad always told me, let your word be your bond. If your word comes out, that's your bond. Live up to your bond. And I have tried. I know right now, men from the courthouse in Gainesville have come right here to this place for the bed. Ask information, go to Nathaniel Hall. He can tell you. You want to know anything, go there and ask him.
Dorothea, do you have some advice you've lived by?
I didn't understand.
Yes, I do.
Aretha.
I have, my mother always told me to treat a person like you want to be treated. And I try to live by that, try to treat everybody that I meet nice.
Mildred?
I think, Lord, that's the same thing, doing to others as you would have them doing to you. And that's what I live by.
Very nice. Well, thank you all. Unless you can think of a story that you think, boy, I wish I had said that, this is the time. Otherwise,
We'll think about it after you go. Most everything comes to you. It's
You
one
call
thing.
us up.
It's one thing how things turn out.
That's right.
It goes away from you, and then you.
Yeah. We'll come back.
But it's so good to meet you all. I tell you, it's been a blessed day.
It's been a very blessed day for us too. Thank you so much for letting us into your lives and hearing the great stories. I know there's lots more. We could stay here for a couple weeks.
Yeah, just so sorry he couldn't have gotten this earlier, I mean, way back, because he was
He was up.
Yes,